All right, everybody. Hello, I'm Roger Blankenship, host of the Flipping America show. It's a radio show and a podcast. We create 3 shows a week, heard coast to coast on AM, FM stations, and then we turn it into a podcast. If you're interested in listening, it's all about real estate investing. It's not just flipping houses, and you can find it on your favorite podcast platform. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. Tonight, we're talking about a buyer's club that I've put together, and I'm going to be sharing that with you and diving right in. Now, I'm all about flipping houses. I've flipped hundreds of houses, almost 1,000 houses on my own. And I like it. I've enjoyed it over the years, but I also know that if you're relying on house flipping as your income, when you stop working, so does your income. So you've got to find ways of creating passive income, putting your money to work for you. And I've been looking for years and I've been doing different things. And there are a lot of things out there I like, but tonight I'm going to talk about one of the things that I like the best. A couple of housekeeping details. If you have a question, I will stay here and answer your questions as long as you need. Just use the Q&A tab, please, at the bottom of your screen or somewhere on your screen. You'll see something that says Q&A with a couple of the bubbles. Just click on that and put your question in there, and I will get to your questions when I can, but I will stay and answer your questions, okay? I do have a presentation for you, but I'll answer your questions. And the other thing I want you to know is, since you've registered for this, I will be sending a video replay of the entire session after I've had a chance to edit it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop my video right now and we're going to go on with the show. I talked about a little bit about passive income, and I also talk about financial freedom. I mentioned this earlier. If you are flipping houses or if you're wholesaling houses, then you do have some income, but it's going to stop when you stop. When your passive income pays for your lifestyle, then and only then are you financially free. And when they talk about passive income, not all passive income is truly passive. It's more of a sliding scale or a continuum. And I've got this little illustration here that shows you the relative active, passive, and we're going to start on the left with active and go to the passive on the right. And so you've got all these different activities, and I've compared some stock market activity in there. On the left-hand side, when you're flipping and wholesaling, you're pretty active. And on the right-hand side, when you're lending and when you're investing in REITs, you're fairly passive, and you could see the same thing with the stocks. Tonight, we're talking about something that I have dubbed the BOR, B-O-R. You see that more toward the passive side. And I'm going to tell you what it stands for in a few minutes, but I've given it a name because, for years I bought properties and fixed them up and rented them out and refinanced them and did it over again. And after I'd been doing that for years, somebody gave it a name and that name became famous. So maybe the BOR name is going to become famous. Who knows? But that's what we're talking about tonight. Focus on that. And now let's compare some of the activities which some of you have been involved in, and I have too. Flipping houses. Here is a before and after. The before was 114,000. The after was 277,000. This project took 11 months, and it took several hours out of each week. Not really that much. It's not that bad, but $197,000 out of pocket and made a $50,000 profit. Not bad. If you can do, 2 or 3 of those at the same time, you can end up having a pretty good year. Here is a typical rental house. Also, this one is a pretty good deal. It takes a few hours a month, even to manage the managers. And it took $25,000 out of pocket because you have to make a down payment on your loan. And you have to do a little bit of fixing up to put the house into rent-ready condition. And if everything goes well, you can net $250 a month. This is a fairly typical rental proposal, and it's not a bad deal. It's something that I've done frequently. This is the BOR method. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now, BOR stands for buy, owner finance, and repeat. This takes a few hours per year not per month and not per week, a few hours a year. And you get beautiful properties like this one you see on the screen. This is an actual property that I own in Deepwater, West Virginia. It took $9,300 out of my pocket to make this deal happen, to buy it and to do the closing on it. I am netting $500 a month for the next 8 years. That's the Bohr method. Here's another house. Isn't this beautiful? No, not really. It's not a dream house. It's not something that I could ever buy and flip. It doesn't fit any of the models or any of the numbers, but it fits the Bohr perfectly. Takes a few hours a year, $9,700 out of pocket, $450 a month for the next 7 years. And we're going to come back and revisit this one in just a few minutes when I show you what the numbers look like. These houses are all over the country, not so much in the Southeast where I'm located. In fact, I've not bought one of these in the state of Georgia where I live, but they are all over the country, especially up through the Midwest. The last two I showed you they just happen to both be from West Virginia. Now, I've seen some presentations talking about this type of thing, and people are wildly exaggerating the return. And so I want to go through, I don't want to bore you too much with the math, but I want to go through a little bit of the return on investment. And here's how you do it. You take your total income over the years, you subtract all your expenses, really, and that's just the cost to purchase. Really, that's it. We're going to get into how this works in a little bit. And that equals your net profit. You take your net profit divided by the costs, and then divide that by the years, and that's your average annual return. And it looks like this. Remember that little house in West Virginia? That one is in Glen Fork, West Virginia, by the way. So $450 times 12 times 7 is $39,800 that we will receive over the next 7 years. Plus the $2,000 down payment, that's $41,800. Minus the $9,700 we have in it. Now that includes our closing costs and everything it took to get this property into our name. That leaves the $32,100 net profit. Okay, following our formula, 32,100 divided by 9,700 is 331%. That doesn't mean a whole lot because it hasn't been annualized. We had it for 7 years, or we will have it for 7 years. So you divide that out and it equals a 47.28% average annual return. Now, I want to tell you something. I went back and forth with the lawyers and showed them actual examples, example after example after, and I bought 50 of these in the last year and a half. And even though these are the numbers that bear out over and over again, we almost never make less than 30% on these houses. They strongly advise me not to put a number in any of our marketing. So we don't, because I know it is a little bit hard to believe. If somebody's came up to me and said, hey, I've got an investment, you can make 30%. I'm going to look for the exit because I'm probably not going to believe them. I wouldn't believe this myself if I hadn't seen it for myself. And I've shown you how to do the math. And then I've created a spreadsheet that allows me to really analyze these properties to think about whether I want to buy them. And my cutoff is kind of right at 30%. If I can't make 30%, I pretty much don't buy them. Okay. And I'll say more about how we figure all of that in just a few minutes. But first, I want to continue with our comparison of the flip and the rental. For about the same cash outlay as a flip, you could buy 16 of these houses that almost double that income for the next 7 years. Look at this chart. Okay, remember your flip cash outlay was right at $200,000 and your profit was $50,000. That's a 25% ROI, and that's annualized because remember that one took 11 months. Okay, the rental is a $100,000 purchase. It nets out about $9,000 a year, and this is a good, obedient 1% rental thing, and that's kicking out net 9% return on investment. Not bad. Really, that's not bad. That's okay. The Bohr method is, and now I took a worst case scenario here. I went up to $12,000 because if you buy one of these houses from me, there's a little fee in there. So $12,000 and $6,000 a year in income. And that yields a 38% annualized return on investment. All right. So if you took that example and wanted to spend $200,000 like you did with the flip, then you could buy 16 of these houses, spend $192,000, and your profit would be $96,000 per year. Per year. And so that same cash outlay is going to make you $96,000 for the next 7 to 8 years, depending on the terms when you sell it. Think about that. From this point forward, every property, every house that you see will be a picture of a house that I bought in this program. You have no tenants, no termites, no toilets, no taxes. And I bought this house for $7,700, bought this for $7,501, no rehabs, no repairs, no rents. How? It's the Bohr method. Buy with cash, owner finance, and repeat. This is a house in Johnstown, Pennsylvania that I bought for $5,500. What we do is we buy these houses for cash, and then we're going to sell them as is. We're not making repairs to any of these properties. If they lack a water heater or a furnace, we will supply that. We'll have it delivered the day our people move in or the day our people are ready to start working on the house. We're selling them as fixer-uppers to people in the community using seller financing. They repair, they maintain. This is a house in Illinois that we bought for $6,100. That's not a bad looking house for $6,100, is it? Here's the deal, and here's the reason why we're doing this call tonight. I got into this and I was a little bit suspicious, and I'll tell you the story. I got on the phone with a guy who has a little exclusive buyers club, and he was looking for another few people to join his club. And he found me and reached out to me and asked me if I want to do this. And I was skeptical. I didn't believe him. I was nervous. I've always been willing to branch out and go one more county over and buy another property in the neighboring county. And over the years, we've bought properties all over North Georgia and into South Carolina, but we hadn't ventured beyond that. And here he was talking to me about buying houses in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Ohio, and I wasn't sure. And then he started talking about the returns, the same kind of things that I've said to you, except he didn't have charts and graphs. And I just didn't believe it. So if you're finding it hard to swallow, I can accept it. But then he found a house that I could buy for just a couple of $1,000s. I thought, okay, I'll risk a couple $1,000s. So I bought this house, and lo and behold, it worked. And then I bought another, and then another, and then another. And now it's become my favorite thing to do. My relationship with my friend Eric has blossomed and grown, and he can now find me about 30 or 40 of these houses every single week. I can't afford 30 or 40 of these houses every single week. So what do? I share it with my friends. And the first thought I had was to create a buyer's list. So I reached out to all of the people on my list and said, hey, does anybody want in on this? If you let me make, a couple $1,000s, I'll sell you these houses that we're finding. And I'll teach you how to do it. I'll show you the ins and outs and provide some paperwork and connect you with some resources. And 142 people said, yeah, I'll do that. And so I had me a buyer's list. The only problem is the buyer's list is not going to do if the buyers don't buy. I need serious buyers because I have to commit. What I did when I got 142 people on my list, suddenly I got confident and said, okay. So I talked to my friend Eric, and I put 15 properties under contract and sent them out to my buyers list, and no one bought any of them. And that left me with a bill. I had to come up with about $140,000, like real quick. And that was stressful and difficult. And I don't want to go through that again. I'd rather have easier times. And so I have kicked the buyers list to the curb, and we're forming the Buyers Club. And that's what this is. It is the Flipping America Buyers Club. I'm calling it Flipping America because that's the name of my show, and that's kind of one of my brands. All right. Here's what it is. This is an exclusive club. We're only accepting 200 members to begin. Membership is for someone who's got at least $10,000, $15,000, maybe $50,000 or $60,000 to buy multiple of these to put into these properties following this model. We have a private Facebook group. We provide training. There's no big training. There's not a charge for the training. We connect you to the resources. And best of all, we're bringing you to deals that you're not going to find on your own. Um, Here's some reasons why you should join. We're going to find the houses for you, and I'll say more about Eric and what he does in a moment. We'll show you what to do with them. We'll connect you with resources. And if you buy at least one house per year, your membership is free. I want you to remember this. This is a members club, and you're going to pay for the membership, but I'm going to turn right around and credit that back to you when you buy your first house. I'm not really that interested in collecting up fees for a membership club, but I am interested in having serious buyers in this group. Okay. Now, here are the downsides, and you need to know that there are downsides to this, like every other type of investing. The house could be a bust. I just looked a little while ago, and over the past year and a half, I've actually bought 54 of these, and I've had 2 of them that we just, we're buying from the pictures. We're looking at the website and doing the best we can and believe we're buying a good property. But we've had 2 times where we just had to say, oh, this house is too far gone. It has damage we couldn't see in the pictures. And so we donated it back to the city, and those houses have been torn down now. And we got a nice little write-off. We've had 3 other occasions where the houses had more damage than we could see in the pictures, namely a big hole in the roof that they conveniently didn't take a picture of. And I don't blame the auction houses for that. It's more likely the person on the ground who was taking the picture for the lender. Anyway, we still were able to move all 3 of those properties. We had to take a little bit of discount. Some of them were only making 20% return on our investment. So sad, too bad. But that's out of 54 properties. That's not bad. The house could be a bust, and if losing $6 or $8 or $10 or $12,000 is going to ruin you, then this thing's probably not for you. People can be a problem. Anytime you're dealing with people and they're paying you money, it can be a problem. And there is a certain percentage of failure. Now, I haven't had anyone fail and haven't had to move anyone out of any of my properties yet, but I'm pretty sure that day is coming as soon as the pandemic is lifted. Okay. I've got a couple right now that are struggling to pay, and well, they're not really struggling too much because they're not paying. And one of them is blaming the coronavirus, and the other one just isn't communicating at all. And so we've got that twice out of the 45 or so that we've got in service. The rest of we've got like 8 or 9 under contract. And anyway, so you're going to have problems with people from time to time. And I did check with Eric about this, and he has about a 5% failure rate. And he's got a plan for dealing with that too. And that's something that we can get into a little bit later on. This isn't completely passive. You do have to make some decisions about it. And depending on what you decide for as far as availing yourself of the resources, you may be a little bit more involved in selling the property and so forth. But it can be almost completely passive. And maybe the other downside is you have to have the cash. Okay. Now let's take a look at this active passive scale again, because I went through it fast. I want you to remind yourself again. There is flipping on the left. There's the Bohr method closer to the right. And I want to say that this can be as passive as you desire. We're going to find the houses for you. You don't have to go digging through websites, search Craigslist, call sellers, negotiate things. We're finding the houses. The way we find the houses is we are connected with the auction houses in a way that you can't connect. I mean, not anytime soon. But then after we find the houses and bring them to you, you're going to choose your involvement. And I'll explain in a minute. Our training is included in your membership, how to sell the property, how to handle the problems. Plus, we're going to make introductions. I have a wonderful lady on that. Really, she's not on my team, but I partner with her. I have retained her to sell all of my properties. Her name is Helen. She's terrific. Everyone that meets her, everyone that's bought a house from me, that has met her and used her, love her. She does a terrific job of getting the properties moved. There is a fee to Helen when she sells the property, but it's well worth it for me. She handles all the marketing. Then there's the legal. I have a firm standing by to conduct closings for us in all 50 states. And the way this works is, for now, there's a closing into my entity. That's getting ready to change. And then there's a closing into your entity, and then there's a closing from you to your end buyer that includes a note and a security deed. Well, I have one firm that can handle all of that, and they will handle all of that. Each closing has a little bit different fee. And I will throw this in there because we've been working on this and we are ready tonight to announce it. We are going to be buying the properties in a unique LLC going forward after this next round closes. And in the future, you won't be buying the property from us. You'll be buying that LLC with its asset. And that means the costs are less. The deed doesn't have to be re-recorded. You have the title insurance that we get when we close on it. Um, it's a much neater package. The costs are lower. Things move a little quicker and it's cleaner. And then we're going to introduce you to fulfillment. We're interviewing companies right now that can manage the payments, receive the payments. These are loan servicing companies. So they will impound for the taxes and all, those, they'll handle those details. They'll keep you Dodd-Frank compliant. You don't have any of those things to worry about. Now, if you're just doing a few of these a year, 2 or 3 a year, you don't have to worry about Dodd-Frank compliance, but you do need to consult with your attorney just to make sure, because we don't give out legal advice or financial advice. We just provide houses for you to buy. We can connect you, though, with firms that can do the fulfillment and service the loans that you're going to make. If you need insurance, we can connect you with insurance, but and we don't always use seller financing. Sometimes we use a contract for deed. We'll explain all of these details and what your options are and when it makes sense to do this one or that one, and help and guide you through. If you're a member of the club, you have access to me and a little bit of access to Eric. You have a lot of access to me. And if you bring a situation to me that I can't solve, I have access to Eric and we will get you the answer. It's not like you have to wait until next Tuesday night for a call or something like that. We're here to help you. And if you need insurance, I can connect you with a national company that provides insurance. Plus, we're baking into the way we're doing this a little bit of asset protection. Just had some guys on my show that talked about the need to keep your assets in individual LLCs, all of them single member, and the single member is your holding company, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into all of that right now, but we're setting you up to be set up in the right way for true asset protection. And we'll also talk about that more inside the club. This is my mentor, my friend, Eric Tomasi. He's been at this for 14 years and he's bought 11,000 houses. He is now on the advisory boards of auction.com, Zome.com, Hudson and Marshall.com. He taught me this business, and he's the Eric that I keep referring to, who is standing by to help you in this business. He and I work together to get these houses, to win the bids and get them under contract and get them bought. And it's more than either one of us can take. And this guy has a lot. But because of his experience now, what happens is a lot of the lenders, the banks that are out there, if they've got a list of properties and they just need to unload them, sometimes they come straight to Eric. They don't even go to the auction houses. And sometimes because of Eric's reputation, having been buying these houses for so long and knowing the markets and knowing the prices, he can go to the lender and say, your reserve price is too high. I'll give you like 1/3 of that. And a lot of times they take it. So we're getting deals at below auction reserve prices. And that's something that, well, you're not going to walk into auction.com and be able to negotiate that. That's one really good reason to join this club. All right. Here's what it takes to join the Flipping America Buyers Club. It's $1,000 a year. And then when you buy a house, I will credit $1,000 to you with your first purchase. So when you buy one house, or the first house you buy each year, that makes your membership free. All I'm trying to do is make sure that you're serious about this and you're ready to buy houses. And it also puts some money in the bank. So if I do put a bunch under contract and nobody buys them, I've got enough money there to cover it. And that's really the entire motivation behind this. If you say, well, I don't have $1,000, what I say to you is go get some money. Okay, now I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but get creative. Recruit a partner or become an affiliate. If you are interested in being an affiliate, I have made room for a limited number of affiliates who help me fill up the club And when we get to 200 members, we're shutting this down. You won't see any more webinars on this, and we're not going to be talking about it a whole lot, because I believe that 200 members will be able to buy everything that we can find. If that proves otherwise, we may open it up to more members. But for now, we're only taking 200. And so that means I don't need, 300 affiliates out there, but I'm looking for maybe 10, and I have 7. So if you want to become an affiliate, you can bring people to the club. You can set up a webinar like this, and if they join the club, they will be part of your account. And when those people buy the properties, you get paid. Okay. All right. Some of you might be sitting there saying, why do I need you? If I were sitting where you're sitting, that's what I would be asking. Why can't I just go do this myself? Why can't I just go to the auction sites and win the bids and do the whole thing? Well, you probably could, but you're not going to find all the properties that we're getting access to. Part of it is knowing how to weed through 20,000 properties a week. And sometimes it's more than that, but it's always around 15 to 20,000. And that's every week. And in that huge jumble of properties from multiple lists, not just one, that are formatted differently, we're able to narrow down and get the best deals. And then we've got a system. Now, I took the system that Eric taught me, and I've actually refined it a little bit more and done some things that, well, frankly, he doesn't do for his people, and that's okay. I've wanted to make this as easy as possible for me, and I am actually less involved with my buyers than Eric is. Eric, handles a lot of his stuff with his local buyers himself. I don't know any of mine. Helen handles all of that for me. And it's just different strokes for different folks, and that's a different way of operating. But I have this system in place that works well for me. It allows me to be pretty much hands off, just put the money into it and the wheels turn and things happen. And that system is what I will teach you and share with you, and you can use as much or as little of it as you want. And then there are the resources. I've collected the resources. I've developed the relationship with the attorney that's got the nationwide network ready to do your closings in all 50 states. And I'm going to introduce you to the loan servicers, and all of this is going to come easily for you. It didn't come so easily for me. It's taken months to put it all together and to get better at it. And frankly, when I started out in this, we struggled a little bit trying to figure out how to get all this done. And then we've got answers to your questions. Eric's been doing this a long time. I've been doing it 1.5 years, and I've asked him a lot of questions, and I remember the answers that he gave me. And so between the two of us, we will answer your questions. Once we have full membership in the Flipping America Buyers Club, no one outside of this club will ever hear about these houses, because like I said before, that's enough people to buy everything that we can find. What if you could provide affordable housing and really help someone while making great money? I want to tell you a story to kind of wrap things up here. One of the very first houses that we bought, we sold to a young couple in Toledo. And my friend, his name is Eric, different Eric. My friend in Toledo, Eric, was there, and he was, having the young couple sign the paperwork and hand them the keys. And he noticed it was a young couple, and she was pregnant, but she also had a baby in her arms. And as he was handing over the keys, she began to cry and actually began to sob almost uncontrollably. And Eric said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "Oh, this is just tears of joy. I'm so happy." She said, "When we had this first baby," and she pointed to the one she was holding, he had medical problems, and our bills are so great. I don't know if we'll ever get them all paid off. And so I didn't think we would ever get to own a house. And here we are standing in the driveway about to move into our house. That was so cool. And Eric told me that story. They're a little bit shy. We're trying to get them to, come on and do a video about it. They don't want to, but we're not going to force them, but they have given us permission to at least share that story. And it moved me. I have another young man who started his own business, young entrepreneur, making good money, but no credit history and no ability to go out and borrow the money to buy a house. But I took a look at what he was doing, and decided I would loan him the money. And he was making good enough money that he thought he could pay me off for this house in 1 year. And so we set a price that allowed me to basically double my money with a balloon payment that came due last June. And this 24-year-old young man paid me off and owns a house in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, free and clear. And that's what I'm talking about. What if you could provide affordable housing? What if you could really help someone while making great money and phenomenal cash flow? Well, that's what it is. And there's your link. It's bit.ly/FA Buyers Club. If you use this link, it's going to take you right to a page to pay the $1,000, and then you're in the membership. Now I have, we put 8 properties under contract this week, and 2 of them are already sold. I have some properties, and as soon as you sign up, you're going to get an email with the properties from this week. So you're going to have an opportunity for some to buy, and it'll be time to jump on them. So I'm going to look over here and take some questions now while I'm leaving this on the screen. I'm going to turn my camera back on so I can talk to you. I have been looking right in the camera and talking to you, but I just haven't had the camera on. All right, let's look. Ahmad, will club members have to compete with each other for properties? I don't know if you're really competing with each other. I'll send an email out, and the first one to get back to me saying I'll take it. I'll take your word for it that you're going to take it, and that'll be it. So one of the things is when you join this club, you're going to get my cell phone number, and I don't give my cell phone number out, but if you're in the club, you'll have it, and you'll be able to text me your response. The other thing is, in time, I'm talking with my team now, we will probably implement some sort of texting plan, so you don't have to be sitting on your email. We're not able to do that yet, but in the future, as soon as we get a property under contract, when Eric usually texts me and notifies me that we've won a bid, as soon as I do that, I'll text out the address. And so there's a little bit more immediacy about that. Heather says, repeat the least amount of cash in hand we should have to start up with you. Okay, well, you need $1,000 to join the club, but typically these houses are going to be between $10,000 and $15,000. If you've got 10 or 15,000 that you can safely invest in something, then that's enough. I'd like you to buy 5 this year, but I'm happy if you buy 1. Oh, Heather suggested GroupMe. That's actually a very good suggestion. I am familiar with GroupMe, and I really haven't even thought about this application, but yeah, I'm going to make a note of that. Thank you. All right. A lot of you have no questions, and that's okay. You all know how to reach me. My email is roger@rogerblankenship.com. I haven't wanted to take up your whole evening. I know this has been kind of a brief webinar, and I was hoping we would do it in less than 45 minutes. And in fact, it's been 33 minutes. I'm not sure. Heather asked, how about you loan people? I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Rephrase that. Andrea says, what happens if you sell or finance it, they stop paying, you get it back, they have acquired liens on the home? Has this ever happened to you? No, this has not happened to me. This question has come up, and here's the thing. These houses are not, you've seen the pictures. These houses are not the greatest houses, and the people that we're selling to are not generally credit worthy on the regular market. I'm not saying they're bad people. They're not. And we have salt of the earth, good people who just don't have much in the way of credit, don't have much in the way of resources. We just don't, these are not the type of people that go out and are able to hire people to work on the home and risk getting a lien. And I'm sure if it turned out to be that way, then when they stopped paying, we would go through a formal foreclosure process, and the formal foreclosure process wipes out all the liens that are on the property. All right. Now, Eric, when he does I'll anticipate this question. When he does end up foreclosing, he does a pretty quick cash for keys. He offers him $2,000 to be out in 2 weeks. And then it goes down $1,000 if it's 30 days, and then 500 if it's 45 days. And if they're going to take more than 45, he'll just take them to court. And he's only had to take one person to court with 14,000 properties. So I like those odds. Then once you have them out, you just remarket the property. Charles, how you doing? What will we see in the initial info from you about a home for sale? Very good question. And what you're going to get is, depending on how much time I have to work it up, in the last workup I did with the 8 properties, I put in there what I do a little research on the fair market rent. And because in order for me to make a decision to buy the property, and I don't buy every property that Eric throws at me, okay? I will pull up the property. I've got some tools that I use to try to determine what the rent. And some of the towns like Catawba, Wisconsin, it's difficult because you don't have a lot of rent comparables. But once we have an idea of what the fair market rent is, we want to establish a price that's around 50 to 60% of that rent. The reason is these people are looking at a fixer-upper that they can own, and their monthly payment is less than it costs them to rent this property. That gets them excited. That makes the phone ring. Now that I've learned truly how to price and market these properties, we hardly ever hold one for more than a couple of weeks. I mean, I just had one in Andalusia, Alabama, that it took us 2 weeks to get it done. We had 5 contracts in the first 10 days. None of those people followed through. Kind of par for the course. This is a little bit worse than usual. But finally, after 2 weeks, this young lady took it, and we have her money, and we have the arrangement made. And now I've kind of forgotten the question. What kind of information are you looking at? So I put the fair market rent. I put what I suggest that you do in terms of a down payment to seek, and a payment amount, and a term. And usually it's some combination of around $500 a month for 7 years. That we're around those numbers all the time. I never go more than 10 years. I like to keep it under 10 years. And the reason is we want people to have really a horizon that they can visualize. They may not be able to visualize 30 years from now, but 7 years, shoot, sometimes they finance a car for 7 years, and now you can get a house in 7 years for less than a lot of car payments. Any hard money lenders? No, hard money lenders won't loan amounts in this small. Most of them don't want to fool with a loan for less than $50,000 or $75,000. How much inventory do you have currently? Well, I have I'm assuming you're talking about the properties that I have for sale. I have, it's either 6 or 7. And I don't really remember how many of those have been bought from last week. I think I had 9, and I think 2 are sold. I think I've got 7 left, but I may only have 6 left. And that was last week. Okay. Yes, Kay, yes, I will be sending out a link to a video replay of this webinar. Okay. You don't have to. All right, let's see. Nathan, do you look for certain areas or just find good deals? Hey, that's a good question. We're looking for the deal. There are certain markets that we just won't even look. We're not going to buy anything in New Jersey. And I personally am not going to buy anything in New York. And I'm pretty leery of anything in the state of Illinois. These states are excessively overregulated and difficult to deal with, and it's just not worth the trouble. Now, I have been buying in Illinois, but I have not bought in New York or New Jersey, and I'm not going to buy anything in California. We're not likely to find any kind of deal like that anyway, but probably not even anywhere on the West Coast, simply because of regulatory burdens. Other than that, though, we're just looking for deals. I've bought them as far west as just outside of Oklahoma City, and as far north as Catawba, Wisconsin. I mentioned that one. That's it's actually further north than Green Bay, on the way up to Lake Superior. And as far east as those two properties in West Virginia, and as far south as Andalusia, Alabama, which is down there on the close to Florida, and everywhere in between. Ohio and Pennsylvania are they're like licensed to print money for us. When we get a house there, they go, man, do they go. And I have two beautiful houses. Well, I've got one house left in West Virginia this week. One of them sold right away. Todd, from the moment a member joins, they have 1 calendar year to purchase their first property in order to be credited 1,000, correct? Correct. That's right. You should be able to find one in that year. What are the other costs typically besides the price of the property, like attorney fees, et cetera? That's a good question, Layla. And typically, the way it's been working right now, and I wanted to say more about this too, the way it's been working up till now is I got my entity approved with the auction houses, and that was a little bit of an ordeal. And then I spent 1.5 years proving myself that I would be a fairly high volume buyer, not the highest, but fairly high volume. And so now my credentials are established, and I have asked for and received permission to give them a new vesting name every time I win a bid. Up until now, and this is the way this batch that I currently have has to work. I have to close in my entity, and your price covers the cost of the closing into me and the closing from me to you. And your money gets wired to the attorney. It sits in his escrow account, and your money is used. One of the things that I say is, if I'm only making a couple $1,000s on these houses, I'm using your money to do the deal. If I have to put my money into it, then and once I've closed, then I'm going to sell it to the local people, or I'm going to charge a whole lot more, because I'm buying $30,000 houses for $7,000 or $8,000 or $10,000. But I'm willing to sell them to you, my friends, and the members of the club for a couple of $1,000s, but we're going to use your money to do the closing and pay the closing costs into me and from me to you. And that usually works out to about another $2,000. It has been more. I had one property in Oklahoma, the closing costs were $3,500, and we fought it and we argued and so forth. I mean, but we got the property for $6,000, so it was hard to whine too much. But imagine having to pay half of the cost of a home purchase and closing costs. Yeah, we were struggling with that. That property turned out okay. The gentleman that bought it from me is very happy. And actually, he wrote me an email the other day that I meant to read to you in this presentation, but I kind of forgot about it today. But typically, what I'm seeing is the closing costs are around $700 or $800. So times two, 1,500 to 2,000 would cover it typically. Heather says cash for keys is better than the courthouse. And yes, it is. Ahmad, what is the fee you charge per house? Usually $3,000, sometimes $2,000. If I feel like it's getting a little thin, then, but I still think it's a good deal for somebody, and maybe I need to cut my fee down to $2,000, I'll do that. But there's only been a couple of rare occasions when I've charged more than $3,000. And that's when I had something like, I had a house in Maine a couple of weeks ago that I had it under contract for $18,000, and the house didn't need any work, and it was worth $125,000. And I thought, well, I probably don't need to let that go for $21,000. So I put it out there for $25,000, and it got snatched up. What's the fee? Okay, I answered that one. Do you recommend rehabbing and selling? I absolutely do not. Not in these. The numbers don't work. And I'm a guy that I like numbers. I run a lot of numbers, and I've even looked at the numbers on these, and it just doesn't make sense to rehab these. You'll never get your money back out of it. You're letting the people do the rehab work, and you're just benefiting from the cash flow. If you rehabbed, now, there are a couple of exceptions, and I will tell you, I can think of two exceptions. The gentleman that bought the house in Oklahoma from me, he bought a house in Milwaukee, And it turns out that it was in the path of gentrification, not necessarily the path of progress, but the path of gentrification. So he bought the house from me for $12,000. He turned around, I think he sold it for like 40,000 to a wholesaler who then turned around and made a few more thousand and selling to a rehabber in the Milwaukee area. So, okay, good, happy. Um, and then another buyer bought a house from me in Pennsylvania, and it happened to be in a town that was within an hour's drive of some relative of his, a cousin or a brother or something. And his relative went over and painted the house for him. And so he put it on the market and sold it for a retail price of about 60,000. He paid me about 12,000 for that house too. Those are two exceptions, but generally we don't rehab them at all. I don't. Does the 2,000 closing costs include the cost to move from your LLC to us? Yes. Um, if this next round, and this will be the last time that there's this little bit of confusion, the next round I have to close in my LLC, and then we will transfer the title from my LLC to yours within 30 days, or probably by next week, with the next round of properties that I buy. Now, it won't be next week, maybe 2 weeks. I will have, because it's going to take me a couple weeks to form these LLCs, I'm going to form about 10 LLCs and just have them sitting over here in my imaginary virtual bookshelf over here. And when I win a property, I'll just take a name and tell Eric, okay, title this one in this LLC, and here's this one, and here's this one. And so after I close on it, all we're going to do then is transfer the ownership of the LLC to you. Hi, Fran. Do you get properties in Ohio very often? And did you say average price was 10K? Do you get very many for cheaper than that? Yes, we do buy properties in Ohio, and we have, they typically come in right around 10,000. You know, we could buy properties all day long in the 20 to 25,000 range, but the numbers just don't work quite as well if we can keep them under 20,000. And really, I try to keep it under 15, but sometimes the properties look so good, the deal looks so strong that we'll go a little bit higher than that, like that property in Maine. We have had them under 10 in Toledo, especially. I don't know, I've bought maybe 7 or 8 properties in Toledo over the last year and a half, and I don't think I paid more than 10 for any of those. In fact, I've got another investor who owns a house in Toledo right now, and she's run into a situation and she wants to unload it. And you can buy a house in Toledo that's paying $300 a month until January of 2026. You can buy that house for $8,500. And at this point, you can probably get a little bit less. If nobody buys it in the next week or two, I'm just going to buy it myself just to help her out. All right. Those are good questions. Any more? You got the link on your screen. Go there, join the club. And, you know, tomorrow, Wednesday, I have a national call I do at noon with the Flipping America RIA, but sometime either in the morning or in the afternoon, you'll get an email from me. Oh, Fran says, tell us a little bit more about Helen Services. You bet. After I establish what I want as a down payment, and usually I want 1,000. So Helen will take it and make it 2,000, and she will market it on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and whatever else is appropriate. And whenever something new comes along, she'll be on that too. And I mean, she's given me the updates. They've made some changes to Facebook Marketplace. Doesn't surprise me. Facebook's changing all the time. And whatever it is, she's on top of it. And she's finding ways to get out there. And she networks with realtors and talks to local people. And she is a Southern girl with just a sweet disposition, and everybody that talks to her on the phone loves her. All these people call her from around the country, and she makes friends, and they tell her their life stories and all of this. She's just great. And so what I do then is whatever she gets as a down payment, I pay her half of it. And then, now what I have been doing, because I've been doing a lot of installment land agreements, if we're doing an installment land agreement and not using the servicer, then I'll give her 10% of the monthly cash flow. But we're bringing that to an end, not because it's not working, but we're going to switch everything over to true seller financing with a note and security deed and hire the servicing company. Oh, Ahmad says, thanks, Roger. I'm in Atlanta. Do you have in-person meetings nearby? Would like to join your RIA. Well, we were doing in-person meetings twice a week until the pandemic, and now we're shut down. And I don't know, probably for the rest of this year, but we do the meetings twice a week anyway as a Zoom call, Wednesdays at noon and Thursdays at 7, every single week. New content, new speakers, new topic, every single week. It's something interesting. Like tomorrow, we're doing wealth preservation with some guys out of Colorado who will help us hang on to what we have. And tomorrow and Thursday night, we're doing how to find private money with Dave DeBow out of Canada. So that's a couple of good topics. And we have stuff like that every week. Anyway, so join us on the Zoom calls, and you can go to flippingamericaria.com and sign up for the calls. Any of you can. And then when we start meeting back, the Flipping America RIA has 21 local chapters from Knoxville to San Antonio. And you can start participating in those local chapters when we start meeting back in person. And I would love to meet you, Ahmad. And Heather says, join Atlanta RIA. I can say yes to that too. I love Dustin and Chrissy, and really as I travel around the country and meet people from RIAs, I just want to say I love Dustin and Chrissy, and what they're doing in Atlanta is strong and fairly unique in the RIA world. They're good. And Fran, you are welcome. Yes, it is. Heather says it's worth every penny. I think the Flipping America RIA is worth every penny too. You can join the Flipping America RIA for as little as $10 a month, and we're glad to have you. And Kay, I see you on the call here. I saw that I had an email from you. I actually fixed an email problem this morning, and suddenly I had over 1,000 emails that needed my attention. So I'm working my way through them. But I will be back in touch with you. And now it is 51 minutes after the hour, and I hope that I have answered your questions, and I appreciate all of you staying on the call. Remember, if you have other questions, just feel free to go ahead and email me as you will, and we'll do this call again next Tuesday night, and I'll keep on doing it until we have 200 members in the club. Hope you join. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you.